Hello and welcome to another edition of Taskmaster Talks with Kevin Sullivan. I am your host, JP John Paz from the Two Man Power Trip of Wrestling. And of course, joining me, the star of the show, joining me here each and every week is the former United States champion over there in the NWA region of San Francisco, former WCW and ECW World Tag Team Champion. He is, of course, the Taskmaster, the Games Master, the Devil himself, Mr. Kevin Sullivan. Kevin, how you doing today, sir?
Great, JP. How are you doing?
Doing very good. And we were kind of briefly discussing a lot of stuff's been going on just all over the world, craziness. But as far as the wrestling world, Dark Side of the Ring gets a little crazy. And we were kind of saying that plane ride from hell episode was a little nuts.
Let me ask you this. I have 4 million miles with Delta. At one time, when Piedmont Airlines was around, when it was out of Charlotte, which merged with US Air, I had 700,000 miles, right?
Wow.
So I've flown around the world many times, if you add them around, right? What I didn't understand is a plane sits on the tarmac for 7 hours. That means the whole East Coast is socked in. You'll be diverted. Am I right? Especially if you're a private jet.
You would think, yeah.
Do you think that they said, well, it's going to be 20 minutes, it's going to be an hour? Are you going to try to tell me they didn't know how long it was going to be? I've been on jets that have gone back after an hour. I think maybe not on private jets, on commercial jets. I think there's a time limit. You can keep them in the ground and they go back to the gate. Has that ever happened to you?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. It's happened to me on not numerous occasions, but a few. Why did they stay on the ground for 7 hours?
I don't know.
Okay, let's kind of put on our Agatha Christie costume and do the mystery, right? Do you remember when they couldn't get out of Saudi Arabia just recently?
Yes. Yep.
Why was that?
I don't know. There was a lot of controversy
It
surrounding
was a
that they were
financial reason.
right, that they got held up basically, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do you think there would have been a financial reason that it was a glitch that the plane didn't get paid?
I don't
And,
know.
and going through banks overseas and getting it done back in the day, we're talking 20 odd years ago, right?
Yep.
It isn't like today where everything is digital, you can do it instantaneously. Do you think they were waiting to get paid?
Maybe.
7
Possibly.
hours. Come on, JP.
It's crazy. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, now here's the other thing. You roll out a liquor cart and they swallow it up like Jonah getting swallowed by the whale, right?
Yep.
And they're having people get unruly then.
Yep.
Then you decide to roll another one out.
Yep.
I've
And
done
then a
some.
third. Then
Yeah,
there's three.
yeah. I've done some stupid things in my life, and you probably have too. I can't
Oh
speak
yeah.
for you, but that was like feeding the hungry lions, and then, but you're giving them only kibbles and bits. On the second one, you're giving them a low class chicken, and the last one, you're giving them steak. What did they think was going to happen?
True.
And where I'm going with this is, do you think they, and I'm not saying these guys were right, but it was a different time and different era.
No doubt. 20 something years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and the people that bitching about it mostly weren't even born. right? I'm not condoning anything they did, but everybody that's knocking them would be in the middle of it partying with them if it was that time. So, you know, if you're without sin, cast the first rock. I mean, I think it was deplorable what they did if it was true. Now there seems to be a sort of backlash against that flight attendant, right?
Right.
What did she steal? $80,000 worth of jewelry?
Yes, I think she was twice convicted or something. Yeah, I was reading up on her.
Okay, so you did more than I did. I only read up the first one. Okay, and I listened to Conan, and he made a very good statement when he said, if she was that appalled, why did she accept the payoff?
Right.
I mean, this is just food for thought. I mean, when we are in such a frenzy to cancel everybody, and hey, in my time with Ric Flair, half of America has seen Rick naked, okay? I
Right.
told you the scariest off screen, the scariest thing that I was ever involved in was with Rick, right?
You said it was involving the pilot, I think, or the
Yeah,
co-pilot.
yeah. We were flying to St. Martin. Rick and I were booked in St. Martin, and we flew into Puerto Rico, and we were delayed. And Rick put on the robe, had drinks, got the flight attendants loved it, and blah blah blah. The next thing I know, and I went. Here's why I've crashed in a plane. If you read Billy Graham's book, I was in that plane crash. The pilot comes out now, the co-pilot, with Rick's robe on, naked, doing the Rick Flair gimmick. I thought, oh, I got to get off this plane because at that time I had just gone down a couple of years before that, and I mean I was horrified. But they don't understand that it was a different era. It's like I heard a very, very interesting thing about a UFO. You know, if we saw a UFO, right, we wouldn't know what it was, how it worked, right? But that's not unlike when Columbus came to the West, the islands in South America and the United States, right? Because he landed in the Bahamas at first. The Indians that he slew didn't understand what the ship was, couldn't comprehend because they had never seen it. So, where I'm going with this is before you crucify people, understand it was a different time and a different era.
Yep.
And 7 hours on the ground, I don't buy it. I do not buy that was because of weather. You're in Germany and you're flying to Stamford, Connecticut. You can't go to Philly. You can't go to Boston. You can't go to Bangor, Maine. I mean, come on. So anyway, that's
Yep.
my rant for today.
Very interesting. Yeah, a lot of hearing a lot of negativity about Dark Side of the Ring lately, about the show and their agendas and what they're up to. I like those guys, and I like the show for the most part, but it does seem like, I don't know, it's starting to take a little bit of a turn with some agendas and some different things. And I've heard some stuff from some guys that were not interviewed that they've talked to either on the phone or they wanted to get answers from in person, that they weren't giving them the right answers. And they, the people are like, well, that's not the truth. And, you're starting to hear a lot of, I don't know, chinks in the armor of that show for sure.
I heard the same thing. I'm not going to say who the guys are, like you're not going to say, but I heard they said to him, he made her touch his genitals. I didn't see that. No, you saw it. No, I didn't see that.
Right.
Yeah, you made him. Well, you're not going to be on the show. I mean, is that putting words in people's mouths? Is that slanting the show? You tried. And what's so funny is, JP, am I wrong? Is that the least watched of all of them?
Yep. Of all time, yeah. Interesting. I was really kind of surprised because I thought they were going to be on the upswing, but now that's the least watched they've ever had in the last 3 years.
So, do you think people said, oh, these guys are full of shit? Let's move on.
Could be. Or they're tired of that story, or why you bringing that up again. I mean, there's a couple different things involved. I feel like, I don't know. Some things I see a lot of people are turning on the show. Not a lot in droves, but I've seen some people completely turned on the show.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I think it's a generational thing.
Hmm.
People that lived through that time understand. I remember when Time magazine cover said that cocaine was good for you.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Made you alert, made you smarter. I mean, come on, it was a different time and different era. We can't go back to the Civil War and say what happened, why Lincoln got shot. Can we?
Yep.
We don't know. So anyway, that's my rant.
So, as far as the topic today, I want to talk a little bit about Arn Anderson's retirement. I know it happened all the way back in August 25th, 1997, on an episode of Nitro, but do you remember like leading
Exactly.
into the retirement and like the feeling backstage? Because that was a pretty like monumental moment back then. It was just like, wow, can't believe Arn has to retire and he's injured in his neck and obviously his hand. He had that issue from nerve damage. I mean, whew, what a awesome promo. But even before we get into that, what was it like backstage finding out beforehand that he was hurt?
Well, I was there when he got hurt. It was in Greensboro. It was with, of all people, the Rock and Roll Express. And he landed on his head, which, there's no better workers at the time than the Rock and Roll Express.
Right.
And Aaron and I at that time were traveling together quite a bit. And then I saw he had a hard time lacing his boots and his hands started to claw up. And it was really emotional for him. It would have been for anybody. It was emotional for all of us. And then, the retirement was done. But again, how many years ago was that?
So it's 1997. So 23, 24 years ago.
Would we still be talking about Arn's retirement if the NWO didn't do that?
I don't know. It was such a damn good promo and like the emotion and everything. It was crazy.
Yeah, but we still be talking about it.
Yeah, maybe not.
Because in this day and age, negativity, right?
Yes.
That was a positive interview. What better way to get heat? And, this is a very sensitive subject with the Horsemen, and I understand it. But what better way to get heat than to pull the rug out after that promo? I mean, come on. That was, whoa. Do you know what I mean? Here you have people crying because one of the greatest workers of all times, to me, I have been in the ring with Arn a bunch of times, one of the most convincing performers of all times, didn't waste one bit of movement, made you look much better than you were. People were crying because they weren't going to see the excellence that he had anymore. Then the NWO came out and put a dump of shit right on his retirement. People's emotions.
And you got Flair crying in the ring, literally, when Arn cut that promo. I mean, it was real. I mean, you can't get much more real than that. I mean, what a damn moment! Just
Right.
very sad, but it was so profound, and everything Arn said meant something, and everything seemed so important. And you got Flair crying. I mean, oof, what a promo!
Yeah. And then the NWO comes out.
Yeah, then so basically within a week, so that happens on August 25th, 1997. The NWO does their thing the next week, September 1st, 97, cuts their mock promo on Arn. Did you think when Arn was cutting that promo, like, and it's over and he gives Kurt Hennig the spot, did you already kind of think forward, like, okay, I want Hennig in the spot because he's going to turn heel, or was that later on you thought about that?
Thought later on, Kurt was a great performer. And I think he's the only guy, and I'm not saying that he, as great as Kurt was, I know I'm going to get heat over this, but I think Arn was a better all-around worker and performer.
With Kurt Hennig, and obviously, you're about to put him in the Four Horsemen with Benoit, with Mongo. I guess Arn would kind of go into more of that like J.J. Dillon role where he's going to kind of be, I guess, no longer the enforcer. He's really going to be the manager of the group. Hennig agrees to take his quote unquote spot. It's such an interesting and such a memorable moment. I mean, you just can't forget it. It's just so great. But at that point, did you think that Hennig really fit the Four Horsemen? No, I know replacing Arn is impossible, but do you think he fit the Four Horsemen in general?
Yeah, because first of all, him and Rick were very tight. And regardless of my feelings about Arn being a better worker, you have to replace 350 hitter with a 340 hitter. And Henning was right up there. I mean, wasn't he AWA champion at one time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I mean, he had a hell of a run in New York. I'm going to tell you a thing that I've always thought about Kurt Hennig. You know what held him back?
What?
His singlet.
Really? Why do you think that?
Because he had a hell of a body. And he covered it up with that singlet.
Why is
Go
that
back.
though? Why did he wear the singlet?
I have no idea because in the AWA, in Portland, he had the tights.
Yep.
Go back and look at the difference.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah. So you really think that held him back from being like the champ or
Well,
the main event, or?
until this era, can you name me anybody that drew money during the Attitude Era that didn't wear tights and boots or shorts and boots, but his body's
Undertaker and Foley, I guess, but I mean, it's kind of different characters with different
yeah,
outfits.
but wrestlers like
Yeah, true. Yeah, Austin, Rock, Triple H, they all had the tights.
yeah, Nash, Hall, Hogan. I mean, we could go all the way down the line. Ultimate Warrior. I mean, there was something to me that your brain didn't equate to Kurt like you should have. Because Kurt was an amazing athlete.
And the thing is here, so it's real. I mean, he's really retiring. Do you have any qualms, or do you like the fact that this is real? He's really retiring on national TV.
He had a couldn't work anymore.
But do you think it's okay bringing it onto TV, or should he just kind of fade it away?
As great a talent as Arn is, he needed that for the people to understand how great he was. I've always said this. He was the one that came up with the Four Horsemen name. You can look at everybody that was around the Four Horsemen. The only two that were the constant were Rick and Arn. And if you watched the promos back then, who closed the promos for the Horsemen? Arn. He put the dot at the end of the sentence.
He definitely did.
Rick would do his dance, the woo and all that, but Arn would close it up. But I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. And made it real.
When Arn retires and this is going on, I mean, what is the sense? Is everybody emotional backstage? What is everybody thinking when this is going on and when he comes through the curtain after he makes that very emotional impactful speech?
It was a standing ovation for him. I mean, everybody understood what he meant and what he gave to the wrestling business. I sometimes don't think that fans understand what people give to the wrestling business. Arn gave almost his life. He almost broke his neck and was paralyzed. I'm sure to this day he's in pain. Like most of us, you know what I mean? I have some pains that's funny. Jimmy Garvin's wife, Precious, hit me with a crutch one time, and she turned it sideways and blasted me like Reggie Jackson used to do in my elbow. And once a month I'll wake up and my elbow would be killing me. And I said, oh, that was some Precious. I mean, but it was nothing what happened to Arn. So it was a standing ovation, and rightfully so. And there was a lot of wet eyes, that's for sure.
Was he just absolutely crushed and devastated? I mean, wrestling is his life. He was such a great worker. And he couldn't, his arm from the nerve damage in the neck, he could barely move his hand. His hand still has a little bit of that like crux in it.
Yeah, and from what I've heard, he had a hard time when he was in the hospital. I've listened to some of his podcasts, that he was really despondent, and I can understand why.
It had to be just a rough time to go through that. And man, Flair's hysterical crying. I mean, it was emotional to say the least. And that's why I love Nitro and love WCW, because you'd get the realism. It wasn't going to be cartoony. I mean, you were really going to have real stuff going on, a real situation. Is that important for Nitro and WCW?
Why do you think the ratings have fallen so drastically?
Man, well, it is way too cartoony. They don't have enough big stars. They kind of went away from good storylines.
We're talking about something 23 or 22 years ago, right? There was no match. We exposed the inner laying of the business. We got the people so down and so into their own thing. My God, the guy we hated for such a long time and learned to respect, and our respect turned to love. There was no match. And then the bullies came out and shit all over his special night, because that's what they would do. They weren't going to come out and say, oh, Arn was one of the greatest, were they? And I'm going to tell you what. I have a special, I lean towards Nash Hall and Kid. You know that.
Yes.
I thought that was Kid's greatest interview of all times when he did Ric Flair. Tell me you weren't rolling on the floor.
Yeah, that was hilarious. Yeah.
Was there a better interview ever?
Man, it's so funny to go through the range of emotions, because I love watching them back to back, because Arn is so good and so powerful. Then you watch Six and Nash, you cannot stop laughing. I mean, it is like that total opposite ends of the spectrum, but it
Right.
is so good both ways. It's so weird to say that because it's so opposite. But
Right.
man, the NWO mocking him was so good. Nash obviously was Arn doing the, that whole bit where he's fat and drunk and like saying all this other stuff. Six pretending he's Flair crying, then Mongo as Buff, or
Yeah.
Mongo was Conan, Buff is Hennig being, a total like phony, just
But
great stuff.
yeah, my spot, not any spot, not live spot,
Yeah.
not dog spot. But if you look at that interview that they did, and Nash is my boy. We were tag team partners when he first started. But Six was the most important thing in that interview. And Sean doesn't get the credit he deserves. He's in two groups and two Hall of Fames. And he was so intricate for the NWO. When they used to do that thing with the camera, the hidden camera, that was his idea. He's a very smart guy that didn't get the credit that he deserves. And I think that was, I, I hate to say it like this, but I think I'm right. Because in my head, I'm right, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It was the greatest interview I ever saw for reality with Arn Anderson. The greatest. Brought me to tears. But the NWO interview was the greatest interview for Heat I've ever seen. Because of this fact, Arn started out as Anderson a heel. Arn Anderson the heel. Then, as time went on, people respected them, even though they booed them. And then, when the NWO came, it was, well, the Horsemen can stop them. Well, the only constant besides Rick and that Horseman just got shot. And we're really giving a eulogy to Arn, aren't we?
Yeah.
And then the NWO comes out. To me, Sean's interview was as great as any interview I've ever seen. It got more heat because it really got heat in the back. And the one he did was, woo! I don't know why I keep doing woo and hitting the ropes. I mean, he had Rick down.
Yep. And the fake crying and the fake
Yep.
tears. Yeah. So is that true? What did they okay it with Arn in the back? I mean, Arn was okay with all this going down. And is
No.
that really Arn Anderson's cooler? Like what's true and what's not true?
Well, supposedly that's Arn Anderson's cooler. I don't know who got it from. But that wasn't cool with Arn. He confronted Kevin that night. And Kevin said, hey, sorry. I mean, that wasn't no disrespect. And that they talked to it out. But Arn was shocked that they went that far, I think.
Because Arn was saying okay, like I think on a few podcasts, but like okay, it gets to a point where it's like overkill. Then he's got to hear from his wife who's calling him. Then he's got to hear from his kids, like why do they make fun of you? Why did they say this? And his wife's like, man, they made you look like a fool. So it's one of those things where Arn's probably a little peeved, and then his wife said something that probably turned it up
Right.
100 degrees.
Let me ask you that. Is that heat?
Oh, that's heat. Believe me. Oh my God, yeah.
If people that know it's all prearranged and it gets to them, is that heat?
Big time heat.
Everybody did what they were supposed to do to the nth degree.
Yeah. Did you think that promo by the NWO, not better than the Arn promo, but did you think it got to the point where that's where you wanted the story to go? Like they hit a home run, everything's headed in the right direction for the War Games?
It was the greatest promo I've ever seen heels do. I mean, they revived the Four Horsemen. Now the Horsemen had something to fight for besides WCW were fighting for Coach Rockney, right? We're fighting for whoever, Lou Gehrig. We're going to win this one for Lou. We're going to win this one for Arn. I thought it was brilliant. And because of this, Arn doesn't get the credit for how this Nitro exploded. It was on Arn's back.
Great stuff for sure.
Yeah.
Now, with WCW Fall Brawl 1997, which was held on September 14th, 97, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Flair Country, Arn Country, Horseman Country, obviously would be held at the Lawrence Joel Veterans Memorial Coliseum. About 12,000 people were in attendance. Of course, the tagline, The Rage in the Cage, pay-per-view buys about 200,000. So pretty good buy rate there. And obviously, this comes off the Arn retirement. Kurt Hennig takes a spot, and the War Games is the main event with the Horsemen against the NWO. One weird thing to me about, and we'll get how come Scott Hall isn't in the main event, or how come he's in a tag match separate with Macho Man? How come he's not with Hall or Nash and Six? Where is Scotty Hall?
Is he in a tag match with Macho?
Yeah. But how come he's not with his boy? His two boys.
Because sometimes you can get more out of less and make the card look bigger.
It's a good explanation. I was gonna rip you apart and say, "Damn, Hall and Nash better be together at all times," but that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, especially go back to the interview. Who were the two that did the interview?
Right. It'd be Nash and Six really were the two guys that did the interview for the Horseman NWO feud.
And if I ask you right off the bat, you remember the NWO in the parody of Arn's retirement? Who do you think of? Six.
And Flair with the crying and the nose. Yeah.
He deserved that spot.
Did Flair and Six have heat for that at all?
Egos are amazing things. I'm sure it was taken to heart for some guys. But, brother, at the end of the day, this is only a business. I mean, now you see movie stars having fake feuds on Twitter, right?
Yep.
So come on, it's entertainment. And it was damn good entertainment.
I feel like Waltman always admired Flair, though, and loved Flair, one of his favorite wrestlers. So it's not like he's really hating on the guy. He's just, getting a lot of heat.
Yeah, it's a parody. I mean, come on. I mean, you see the Saturday Night Live do parodies on Trump. I'm sure some of them are Trumpsters.
Right.
But it's a parody. If you're got an over the top personality, everybody's going to do parodies. Back when I was a kid, Ed Sullivan, right? I don't know if you even know who that is.
The Ed Sullivan Show, yeah.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a big show tonight, a very big show. Everybody did it. I mean, so it's a form of flattery to me.
With Nate and Six, obviously, that was a brewing feud there. But behind the scenes, it seemed like NWO versus the Four Horsemen was definitely something, as far as just politics were concerned. They were definitely jockeying for power and position.
Yeah, it was one of those. You know how we started the show about different times and different eras?
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me that WWE AEW, everybody's friends. Nobody wants to hurt anybody's feelings.
Yep.
This was swimming with great white sharks. Everybody was taking a bite out of everybody. And because they were doing that, it was forcing people to think, to come up with angles and ideas for themselves that were very good. It caused a little bit of competition in a prearranged business. So it was a different time and a different era, I think. And you hit it on the head. They were jockeying for position, without question.
Seemed like definite power struggle. The Horsemen was obviously losing momentum. The NWO is really taking their spots and dominating. You know what I mean? They're like you said, you were booking like a balloon. It was blowing up, blowing up, blowing up. NWO, NWO, NWO.
Right, right.
Do you think that with that it created a lot of turmoil backstage? I mean, is that good from like a booking perspective, or is that almost bad? That oh man, these guys are at each other's throats.
It made them work harder in the ring. And
Really? Okay.
and they respected one another more, I think. Because they both, because of the intensity of that, it brought out the best on both sides. I've heard Steve Austin talk about why he wouldn't work with Hogan. So there was resentment there, obviously, right? That would have drawn a lot of money. So that in that era, it wasn't that you were picked to be the next guy. You had to fight for that spot. And if a guy had the spot, you were going to fight the best you could backstage, out in the ring, in the match, whatever, to be the primo guy.
Yep. Gotcha. With NWO Flair, I mean, obviously that's a lot of stuff going on, but there's also Sting stuff going on. I mean, he's the big star. He's kind of hiding in the rafters. He made his declaration really by beating up the NWO all the way back and uncensored that he's WCW for life. And it's like, what does he want? What does he really want? So leading up to Fall Brawl, JJ Dillon is offering him a match, and he says, "Hey, I'll give you a match with six to the NWO." And the crowd is chanting Hogan, Hogan. Do you think JJ was in a tough spot here? Because it's almost like, duh, JJ, he wants Hogan. It's so obvious, but he offers him a contract with six. He rips up the contract. The crowd is chanting for Hogan. JJ's acting like he still doesn't know what he wants. Almost Mean Gene is almost acting like, oh, we don't know what you want, Sting. Do you think that almost was like not silly, but almost like, wow, JJ, yeah, you got to pay more attention here.
I think it was to make them really want to buy that pay per view. Like, oh, they're going to give us Sting and Hogan. Sting and Six, as great as Six is, he wasn't Hogan.
And that's not what the crowd wanted, yeah.
Yeah, it's not what they want. But here's the thing, which is different generations. Now they give the fans what they demand. Back then, we made them wait until we wanted to give it to them.
Right. A little different nowadays. Seems like the fans have way more say. Is
Right.
it the right way booking way to go about it? Is the way you're going about it? Like you make them wait. It's on your terms.
You just said, well, we only did 200,000 buys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do they do anywhere near that?
I don't know because of Peacock. I don't know what they do. They've been struggling. I do know AEW's last pay per view supposedly did 200,000 buys with Danielson and Punk, and that's so it did. But they normally average 100,000 AEW.
So they jumped 100,000.
That's what they're saying. Yeah.
Is that verified?
Not officially yet, but I guess Meltzer had mentioned it, or one
Well,
of the
no,
writers.
no,
So
no. Don't go there because everybody's been jumping down Meltzer's throat. Have you noticed that?
mhm.
About the 1,500 people that left during Charlotte's match?
Yes, yep,
I mean, there's a slanted view there, and you know that, right?
right, of course, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think Tony said it too. I think Tony Khan tweeted
If
something about it.
then
But
if he said it, I believe it.
yeah, I think he tweeted about it as well after I think Dave originally said something. But I think they're able to get the numbers a lot quicker nowadays. Obviously, back then it took some time to get some pay-per-view
Right,
numbers. But I
right,
know even talking to your buddy Mike Weber, he was saying it's a lot easier to get numbers
right,
nowadays.
right, right.
Um, so maybe they did 200, but I mean it was a huge jump because they normally do about 100,000.
Well, good for them because I'm sure that the match was incredible. With the 30-minute Broadway. Is that what we're talking about?
Well, that was on Dynamite. The pay-per-view was Punk versus Darby Allin. Danielson made his surprise debut, which was kind of leaked online. Adam Cole made his debut. Pay-per-view, Minoru Suzuki. The pay-per-view had a lot of different surprises and angles going on.
Yeah, and obviously they're going to go for a bigger number with Danielson and Omega going 30 minutes, right?
Yes,
What,
no doubt.
what did you think of that as a New Age fan?
I I love the match. I thought it was great. I've been a Danielson fan forever. I feel like this was like the Brian Danielson of 15 years ago when he was in Ring of Honor, dominating and wrestling all these awesome guys and just having great matches.
But that isn't what I asked.
Oh,
The question is,
the draw?
yeah, do you like to see a football game end in a draw?
No,
Ba- Baseball, do you like the seventh inning now? Bullshit.
no. Got to go 9.
Was that the smartest thing to do? Do you think go 30 minutes through?
I felt like they were building up to the pay-per-view where they had the rematch where there must be a winner. I feel like that's what they're
Yeah,
going after.
and that's what I wanted to hear you say. Yeah, they did it for a reason. I
Had it
think they're,
the pay-per-view so you pay for it and you're going to see
I
a winner. Yep.
yeah, I think they're very smart, and some of the things they do is amazing. And why I say that, back in the day, I remember when I was a brand new boy in the business, Briscoe and Funk. There we go, 60 minutes. Come back the next month with a 90-minute time limit, go the 90 minutes, and then eventually Dory gave the belt to Jack. It was the way to do it. So they're going back in the Mr. Peabody's way back machine and going 30 minutes. And I liked how they ended it, not with the hold and him ready to tap out.
Yes, I did like that too because that's such a generic thing that they
Yeah,
always did. Like, oh, if he had 2 more seconds, he would have
yeah,
beat him.
yeah,
This made it look like they're actually even,
right.
and that who anybody could have won at any time, but they couldn't beat each other in 30 minutes.
I wonder whose finish that was.
Good question. I don't know who books as far as aging the match. I wonder if it's Jerry Lynn. I wonder your buddy Jerry.
It would have been. It's a very good finish, and whoever gave that finish needs to get a bonus.
Could have been your buddy Dean too.
Yeah.
They got a couple good agents back there.
Oh, they got a lot of good agents.
Yeah, quite a few. Yeah.
They got a lot of smart guys in
Yep.
their company.
So as far as Fall Brawl is concerned, we're saying about basically building to Sting Hogan without building to Sting Hogan. Hogan is not on this pay-per-view, but you got the NWO versus Horsemen, and you got Luger and DDP versus Hall and Savage as your 2 headliners. So the first match of the night, Eddie Guerrero defeats Chris Jericho for the Cruiserweight Championship in about 17 minutes. What do you think here? Awesome match. 2 guys that are just obviously at the top of their game, 2 of the greatest of all time. What a hot opener.
It's the way you got to do it. You got
What do
to.
you think about Eddie and Chris in '97 at this point?
Oh, they had unlimited potential. And look at Chris is still drawing big money.
Crazy just to
Yeah.
think of how his longevity. I just thought here it's like, man, this is WCW to a T. What a hot opener. Two of the best wrestlers in the world. It seems like that's your formula, right? I mean,
Right.
started off hot, two of the best wrestlers. You can't go wrong.
And we're going to get wrestling, what it says on the marquee. It doesn't say wrestling. It doesn't say sports entertainment. It says wrestling.
When you book this match and you book obviously the finish of Eddie winning and stuff, do you book the time? Like, hey, I want these guys to get a certain amount of time, or that's
Absolutely.
oh, you do?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. I probably said to Jody at the time, Jody, I want to give these guys 20 minutes. And he probably said, I've timed the card out. I can give them 15. And I said, can you take 2 minutes off during the show and give them 17? Yeah, I can do that.
So as a booker, I mean, you know where you want to go, but you also can control like, hey, this has got to go longer, this has got to go shorter. I
Right.
want this, I
Right.
want that.
It seems like it's a fail-safe solution, right? But
Yeah.
you get a referee telling guys, time to go home, you got a minute, and they're not into the finish and they go another 2.5 minutes, you're saying, oh, God, now how do I make up the time?
Yep. So the next match, the Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott, with DiBiase, defeated Harlem Heat with Miss Jacqueline in about 11 minutes and 45 seconds. Feels like these teams wrestled each other a million times in WCW.
They did, and it never failed. It's like Sting and Flair. I knew that all I needed to do was put Sting versus Flair on a television program, and I was getting a number. These guys, they worked together so good. They traded the belts back and forth. You're going to get a great match. And now you're building a crescendo. I mean, the first match was, whoa, now we got really hard hitting, bigger guys. Booker doing all his flying around. The Steiner brothers beating people up. We got DiBiase on the outside and Jacqueline. We got a pretty good start of the show.
Harlem Heat and the Steiners, great chemistry, always great together. Obviously, with Miss Jacqueline, with the Harlem Heat, a little bit of a difference when they were with Sherry. What do you think about Jackie with the Harlem Heat?
I thought she was great. I mean, she was a real professional. Anything you asked her to do, she did, and she was great. She was great. And I thought that uh, fit well, Jackie with the Harlem Heat, because she was so physical, like they were.
What do you think about DiBiase with the Steiners? I feel like that was an odd pairing. It didn't fit.
I didn't. That was not my doing, and I didn't really. That was putting a round peg in a square hole.
Who wanted them together?
I think because he had it. Now you got to realize we're talking about somebody's going to be accountable for guys' income on the other end of the tower, right?
Yep.
And he came in to be the NWO manager, right?
Yeah. Trillionaire Ted.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure you can come up with whose idea that was.
And it's weird too because Bischoff was like, I don't know if DiBiase fit with the NWO because I remember I interviewed him and asked him, I said, he fit perfectly. Like, what do you like? XWB guy, he supposedly has all this money, fit perfectly. Him as a baby face with the Steiners doesn't fit at all. I know he was got religious at this point or born again at this point, but damn man, he did not fit with them whatsoever.
Yeah.
He's a heel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And an XWB guy, and you thought he was rich just in your head as a fan. Me thinking like, oh God, he's got money. He's going to help Hogan get whoever he wants, and he's going to help Paul Nash. And oh my God, he brings in Vincent, his his former body. It seemed like he was a good fit for the NWO.
Right.
We were pairing with the Steiners, just didn't make sense. And Steiners don't need a manager. Come on, they're the Steiner brothers.
Yeah.
Have you seen Rick's kid, by the way?
Yeah. Yeah.
You saw him on NXT, Braun Breaker. They call him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like Rick spit him out of his mouth, except he's a little taller. It looks like.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He's taller.
Yep.
but he's got those cannonball shoulders and freaky strength.
Does all the Steiner brother moves?
Yeah, he's going to be a world champion quickly.
If he isn't, they screwed up. I mean, he's
Yeah,
got everything to me. I
they
know you
can't.
can work on his promos, but you can't screw the guy. He's like Lesnar in 02. You can't screw this guy up.
You can't fuck this one up. You know what I mean? Please, you
I
can't.
even love that he's wearing Rick's old singlet from like 92.
Yeah, I thought about that. It took me I'm saying to myself, what's that singlet about? And then I said, Jesus, that's Rick's original one, and it was.
Crazy. I love that though. It's so cool.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't like how he's not Rex Steiner like he was originally supposed to be, but
Because
I guess
they got to own the name. Come
Yep.
on, that's a. I don't understand shit.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So next up, Alex Wright defeats Ultimo Dragon and he retains his television championship. Match goes about 19 minutes. Really good match. You guys gave Alex Wright and Ultimo Dragon a lot of time here.
We're getting ready to go to Germany pretty soon.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And we're trying to drive our European buy rates up too. And we're trying to clear stations that we don't have in Europe. Because we had to jump on the WWF. Like, they couldn't go to Switzerland because they were the WWF. Remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
You know what the WWF is, right? The World
Wildlife Fund? Yep.
Foundation. It's in Switzerland. So we had Switzerland. We had part of Germany that they couldn't go to because there was a huge lawsuit. That's why they dropped the F.
Right. Yep. Get the F out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alex Wright gets the big victory. You said, you got big plans for him. I love the fact you guys give these guys so much time. Like Eddie and Jericho go 17 minutes. This match goes 19 minutes. I love when good guys get enough time to kind of not get their shit in, but to showcase what they could do.
Yeah. Here's the thing. We can talk, and you're absolutely right about Eddie and Jericho and everybody else, right? About time.
Yep.
Am I right?
Yep.
And I'm a firm believer of that because, like you said, you always start the best match first, right?
Yep.
When The Rock raises his eyebrows, the show's over. Can anybody top that?
Hard to top.
You got to learn that when guys are over, they're over and they draw money. And it isn't because they do a lot of good shit. It's because the guys before them do a lot of good shit that they can't do. So it's really a symbiotic relationship. And sometimes the guys on top don't understand how important those guys like Eddie and Chris Jericho were. And Ultimate Dragon and Perry Saturn and Raven. It's important to have that because those guys couldn't just raise their eyebrows if you didn't have that great talent doing the great shit.
Very well said. Then we have Jeff Jarrett with Deborah defeating Dean Malenko in 15 minutes here. Seemed like you had some plans for Jeff and Deborah as far as a unit, and him getting a big win over Dean here.
Yeah. I mean, I've always thought that Jeff Jarrett was very good talent, but in my head, did he fit WWE better than WCW?
I don't know. It's tough to say with him because sometimes he felt very Southern, quote unquote, and would
Right.
fit with WCW. But when he shaved his hair and he was doing the "Don't piss me off" thing, he fit perfectly with WWF.
Right. So, and hey, he's a second generation, knows the business.
Yep.
And him and Deborah look good together.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Technically third generation if you think of it, if you count promoting. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Wrath and Mortis with James Vandenberg defeat Faces of Fear, Ming and Barbarian in about 12 minutes. Did you have plans for Wrath and Mortis here, going over your boys, Faces of Fear?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, that's another one, the dark side of the ring of
Canyon, yeah.
Canyon thing. I'm not sure they got that one right either. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Mental health issues to go, to it's almost like they did this. It's such a sensitive issue. Suicide's a horrible, horrible thing, and you're affected your whole life through it. I mean, I had it on my family, and on both sides. And does I feel when people do that kind of shit, they exploit it, not for the good. And if anybody, so I'm going to give a little thing. If anybody has any suicidal thoughts, call somebody. I don't, call somebody because, it's a horrible thing. Depression can drive anybody to horrible lengths. So, uh, yeah. Now, switching back to being the booker, yeah, I thought Wrath and Mortis could do a big business. Somehow, they got on the outs with Hall and Nash. Did you ever hear that?
No, never.
Yeah. Scott could be, his tongue could be like a whip. And, he, Brian Clark, one time he said, what a mark to put an atom bomb on your shoulder. And there was they had problems. And I think that's what stopped their push.
Wow, didn't know that. Interesting with that. Because Wrath had everything you needed. He had that look. Maybe not promo, but he definitely had that look and that ability and that size, for sure.
Right, right.
Speaking of that, next guy up, the Giant defeats Scott Norton in about 5 minutes. Just kind of a quick throwaway here, just to keep the Giant strong, I guess.
Yeah. And it didn't hurt Scott because he was going against the Giant. And the Giant, I believe, was going to Japan to wrestle Scott. So it was one of those things that I really watched what I did with Scott. But this one I could get away with because they were going to have a return, I believe, in Japan. If it wasn't soon, there was going to be one anyway.
Did you think with the Giant kind of not turning him a lot, but he turned him a few times face and heel, did you think that hurt him?
Absolutely. I think when people turn and when you don't know what they are, I mean, one time I remember I was talking to somebody in the WWE office and they said, what do you think our problem is? I said, well, you have a program with Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio, and then the next week, the big program, and the next week they're partners. I said, shouldn't Ray gone to Eddie and said, hey, we're both Latinos, be my partner, please. Let's put it aside. And Eddie bluffed him off, and then Ray gets his ass kicked, and week after week he gets his ass kicked, and then he hits the ring and saves Ray. And they don't shake hands, but Ray sticks out his hand, and Eddie leaves and goes back. Okay, amigo, and they talk in Spanish. And no, I mean, how many times can you turn?
Yeah, it's too
I
much.
mean, if you watch a soap opera, how many times does a babyface turn heel to babyface heel? One turn is all you get.
Yep.
That's what I think's missing in the business. And I'm not saying there can't be in betweeners because when I broke in the business, Paul DeMarco was drawing big money in uh, Atlanta as an in betweener. And that was God 1,000 years ago. So, but you can't keep turning back and forth, back and forth. there's no way to keep it in check. And then and I'm talking the WWE now, with so many writers that have never had any inkling about wrestling and what wrestling fan. The problem. You could be a writer, John, because you're a wrestling fan.
Right.
I was a writer because I'm a wrestling fan. Those people aren't wrestling fans. They don't understand the history of wrestling. They couldn't tell you who Argentina Rocca was. I mean, there's no consistency like, you know, in baseball, the statisticians, right? There are some that are good and some that are horrible.
Yes.
You believe in that too?
100%. Yep.
Yeah, 100%. I saw one time, I went to the Red Sox were here about 10 years ago, and we were up here for the summer, and I saw the Red Sox play Seattle. Seattle had their third baseman behind second base, the left fielder playing center field, the first baseman playing first, the second baseman playing short right. I mean, they stacked it, right? Puppy had 4 doubles. He hit it to left field. Anybody else could have got a triple, or maybe inside the park home run. But after he did it twice, don't you think they should have said, well, we're following the statistics that he pulls the ball? Well, he pulls the ball, but he has back control. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's where I look at some of these guys and saying, well, that girl they fired, right? She didn't even know who the champions' names were. Bobby
Yep.
Lashley, right?
Yep.
Now, how can she write?
Makes no sense.
And she was probably the only one they asked that question to. How would you feel if you were Bobby Lashley and the writer didn't know your name?
I would be pissed. I mean, that's horrible. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the next thing up, Lex Luger and Diamond Dallas Page defeat Scott Hall and Macho Man Randy Savage with Elizabeth in a no DQ match in about 10 minutes. Big win for Luger and DDP. Hall and Macho Man, not Hall and Nash, Hall and Macho Man take the loss here. It doesn't hurt them, but DDP gets a nice little elevation up the card and obviously building towards the final match with Macho Man at Halloween Havoc. So Luger and DDP got to keep them strong here as the booker.
Absolutely. I can beat the NWO, right?
Yep.
We're in, and you got to realize, where'd you say we were, John?
Winston-Salem.
What town is that?
North Carolina. Woo. Flair country.
Yep. We're playing to the crowd.
So Luger and DDP get the nice big victory there, but in the main event, you're really gonna be pissing off the faithful here because the NWO Buff Bagwell, Kevin Nash, Six, and Conan defeat the Four Horsemen, Benoit, Mongo, Ric Flair, and Hennig in a War Games match in 20 minutes. Man, what a heat finish! You got all the guys. They lock up the Horsemen, Benoit and Mongo with the handcuffs. You get Flair, you think Hennig's the babyface, and no, he turns NWO and smashes Flair's head into the steel cage. The crowd is going nuts. Shivani's pissed. You see people crying. They're upset. They really think Flair's hurt. I mean, they talk about heat finish. You love your heat finishes here. Crazy. The NWO wins in Flair country, and Flair gets demolished.
I think I learned about heat through Eddie Graham, of course, and Dusty. But I also learned it through boxing. Ali was my hero. I met him personally. We did his first charity show. And brother, I've never been moved or marked out on anybody. When I met him, there was like a presence about him. And when he lost to Frazier, the first one,
Yep.
there was heat across the country. But if he didn't do business on the first one, and I'm not saying he did, but it really resonated when your hero got beat and what he had, trials and tribulations he had gone through. Now, this is coming off of that great interviews. They know the Horsemen are going over, right?
Mm-hmm.
They know it. What's the only way you can beat them? From within. The guy that took Arn's place, Judas. We had Judas at the table and we didn't know it.
Yep.
Hey, Judas, pass me a pork chop, Come on. It was so hot. And like you said, there were people crying, there was shit being thrown. Those guys had a tough time getting back to the dressing room. Yeah.
That was crazy. Oh my God, what a moment there for the NWO defeating the Four Horsemen. What do you think overall of not only that but the whole show? It's a pretty good show. Crazy ending.
Yeah, I think, hey, go to the first match and last match. I got to definitely give it a thumbs up.
WCW at this point, 97, you were guys hot on fire. Pay-per-view wise, you were as well. And this pay-per-view was great. To have obviously a couple great matches. Insanely hot finish. Hennig turns, he joins the NWO, and man, the Four Horsemen you think are almost dead and buried. It's just what a crazy ending. You love to book heat, and you boy did you ever.
Yeah, and that's what draws money. That's what draws money. I mean, Hogan came around and changed the formula for a while because he came off one of the most successful franchises in the history of the movie business, Rocky. So they looked at him in a different light. So he had to be the good guy. But, after a while, I'll give you an example. Did we love Mike Tyson when he was knocking people out?
Yes.
Did we hate him when he got knocked out by Buster Douglas and bit Evander's ear?
Oh yeah.
Which drew more money?
Yeah, true. Very true.
Yeah.
So let's head to the plugs. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. Check out the website, tmptempire.com. And of course, follow Kevin on Instagram at Taskmaster Talks. And check out Pro Wrestling Tees, prowrestlingtees.com, and hit up the Kevin Sullivan store for a couple of great t-shirt designs. Kevin, you got anything else going on?
Yeah, this Saturday I'm going to be in Fort Wayne, Indiana, the Legends Convention. And I want to give a plug to a friend of mine. They wrote a book. I mentioned it to you. It's called Old School. And the only thing I can compare it to is The Sopranos Meet Wrestling. So it's on Amazon.com. So if anybody wants to read a really interesting book, it's really good.
Nice.
And the characters, I can tell you'll recognize who they're supposed to be.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Definitely check that out, everyone out there. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you right back here next week for a little Taskmaster Talks with Kevin Sullivan. See you next week, folks.